Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Mysterious Galaxy virtual event. I, of course, am Nick, the director of events for the store, but you'll notice I am joined with a second person today. No, this is not a ghost. This is actually Rob. He is our horror guru for the store. I enjoy horror myself, but to say I enjoy horror means, like, compared to him, he is like, of horror in the store. He is going to be giving intro for the wonderful authors that we have here today. And as many of you have been saying in the chat, this is a wonderful event with some wonderful horror authors. Real quick, if you have any questions that you want to ask, it looks like some of you have already found that question box. Click the link below under Ask Questions, submit them, and I will appear later on in the program to pose those questions to the authors. Oh, Josh Malerman's reconnecting. If you want to purchase any other books that you haven't yet, there's another link below that says buy books and get signed book plates or signed books. We still have some signed books from Gabino, some from Alma as well. So if you get her latest book, The Fervor right here, I'll have to reintroduce him. We still have signed copies as well as Gambino's The Devil Takes You Home, which looks like this bad boy right here. Otherwise, we'll have book plates for the other authors. I'm going to go ahead and try to reconnect. Who disappeared? Josh Malerman. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and disappear for now, but I'm going to let Josh Malerman reappear. All right. Oh, wait.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for being here. It's just a real privilege to be with some of my all-time favorite horror authors. It's no hyperbole to say that we're really in a new true golden age of horror, and these are the voices of that horror. I've had the privilege of knowing some of you on social media, some of you in person, but your stories are just compelling, they're riveting, they show the full potential of what horror can be, and we're so grateful to have all of you here. We want to give a special shout out to Alma Katsu, who put this wonderful event together today and invited all these amazing people. She's just privileged to have her as a friend and horror writer. We're featuring her book today, The Fervor, which is a horror novel where, like many of these stories, the horror is as much the human horror as anything supernatural, if not more. It's a deeply personal book for me because, like Alma, we both have family that were in the Japanese internment camps. But she's also in some amazing other historical horror, has a new book in the works she's going to tell you about. So we're going to go on real quick to Paul. Paul's new book is The Pallbearers Club, and it's absolutely phenomenal. Like every book of Paul's I've read, it rips into your soul, digs deep, just tears your heart apart. Paul is the opposite of a comfort read for horror. Some of the most real, intense, but just brilliant horror I've read. And it's such a privilege to have him with us. Then we're going to jump down to Stephen. The book we're featuring today is My Heart is a Chainsaw, which is an absolutely awesome must-read for anybody who loves horror films, slashers. It's a first book in a trilogy. I just got this, which I'm so excited about. It just came in from the publicist, and it's Don't Fear the Reaper, which is coming out next spring. It's already up for pre-order on our website. I'd also highly recommend, if you're a werewolf freak like me, to read Stephen's Mongrels. And on the side, back to Alma, she has a brand new werewolf novella that just came out that we can't get you, but she can tell you how to get. And then we're going to go down to Gabino. Sorry, a lot of people here. So we have The Devil Takes You Home. Brilliant book. Again, not comfort horror. It's intense, riveting. I sort of think of it as like you Cormac McCarthy's like darkest stuff, and then throw in supernatural elements. We had him in the store just a couple months ago. I had never read Gabino before that, and then after he talked, I just grabbed it and started devouring it. So we're so thrilled to have you here. Then we have Josh's Daphne, his new serial killer book. It is part of a shared universe of books in the Malorverse. Josh, you guys may know from doing Bird Box, which was a hit series on Netflix, but is also just a fantastic horror writer. I loved Goblin, one of his recent books, where you see the full range of his art, from being like Pearl, which was like slasher throwback horror, to almost a Bradbury-esque touch, with some really beautiful prose in Goblin. So we just want to thank all of them for being here. One last note is, if you guys are a fan of My Heart Has a Chainsaw, we still have about a dozen hardcover first editions of it, which are pretty rare out there. And we have signed book plates for those from Steven. So I'm going to turn it over to Alma, and she's going to be the amazing host. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. He's one of my favorite people. It's the funniest thing. I do think people who are into horror are just the nicest people, which seems like it shouldn't be true. But all the horror writers are the nicest. I mean, I know a lot of not very nice writers in the thriller world, but horror takes the cake. Okay, so first of all, I do want to say, I'm really honored to be with you guys. This is such an assembly of talent here. I had a bunch of introductory notes too, but having gone over all of your histories and stuff recently, I'm just blown away really by the amount of talent here. And all of you guys can write, and you do write a lot of different things. It's not just horror. I mean, it really spans the gamut of speculative fiction. But before we get into the books and more thoughts about horror, this is supposed to be a Halloween panel. So I thought that maybe we'd get the audience in the mood for Halloween a little bit. So let me ask you all first, because I know you'd think that every horror writer would be a Halloween person, but we know that's not true, don't we, Paul? So I want to ask,
is that right?
are you a Halloween person? Do you dress up? Do you decorate your home? Do you go on haunted? Oh my God, yes. Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
That's disturbing.
Okay, so who wants to confess? I mean, besides putting on the mask, who's a Halloween person here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Halloween. I'm kind of an everything person, but I'm definitely a Halloween.
I don't doubt that you're an everything person. So what do you do special for Halloween? Do you do anything special for Halloween?
I mean, I want to I always have the fantasy of hosting the Halloween party, but then Allison and I never really do that. But we did have a couple years ago, we hosted an occultist lecturer named John Tenney, and that was so awesome for him to come into the house with the ghost box, the speaker.
Wow.
And headphones and blindfolds, and there was 70 people here, and he just gave an hour-long lecture about ghosts and his history of investigating them. So the fantasy would be to do something of that nature every year, but I would I'll also take just going over to the neighbors and joining a party.
I think doing that even once is pretty amazing. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. What about the rest of you guys? Do you, Stephen? I know you have a 12-foot skeleton.
Yeah, 13 feet actually. And we've got animatronics all over the front of the house. And today it was a very windy day here in Colorado, so the animatronics were just keying on everything. So it was just a cacophony of ravens and monsters, and I'm sure the neighbors are sick of it, But it's really fun because during the daytime, all the little kids walk by, the little under 6 years old kids. And they all dare each other. What is making that cool noise? That's neat.
That was awesome.
Yeah, they dare each other to come close enough to our porch to make them all come alive, And,
oh my
and
God,
run away. It's fun. But yeah, I love Halloween. I think Halloween begins on November 1st, really.
Cool. And do you ever post a picture of your house and the yard? Is there some place where we can see what it looks like?
No, I never do. No, just because of people like Francis Dollarhide who look at pictures the wrong way,
That's true. So, Paul, do you want to fess up, or shall I fess up?
Well, I don't. I love Halloween. I would say I'm not a Halloween person. I just I don't have a ton of decorations. Actually, my favorite memories are taking the kids out trick or treating, in the neighborhood, starting from when they were small enough. You had to pull them in a wagon. And then later that wagon would have beers in it when the kids were older. So that kind of stuff is fun. Who's got the
I
We
know.
don't know
but
one. Anybody
I
else?
gotta
Yeah?
say, I kind of love it, but
I would say, like,
I think it's 10 of
a quick recommendation. 'Cause John Langan, who's not here, has had people go through his house and do like the Halloween thing.
Oh, that's cool.
His opening story in his new collection, Corpse Mouth, is a fictionalization of one of those Halloween nights at the Langan's house.
Oh my God, that sounds wonderful. See, I have to turn the mic off, but we'll see if we can keep I know there's something that causes that feedback loop.
I put my AirPods in instead of my mic, so maybe that'll help.
Okay. Yeah, you're good like that. I'm not. Well, we were talking about Halloween the other day, and as an adult, I've grown up so that I don't really do very much for Halloween, which doesn't seem like something a horror writer should confess to. But when I was a kid, it was very different. I grew up in a small town that apparently was just packed with children, because you'd go out on Halloween and you'd see the street would just be rippling alive with little children's heads, right? And this was in the early days before you had chaperones. So the town was just like taken over by little kids dressed up, running from house to house with pillowcases. We'd fill up an entire pillowcase with candy by the end of the night, 300, 400 pieces or whatever. Just insane. But I guess I sort of mourn the fact that Halloweens aren't like that too much anymore. But before I get too maudlin, so who did we miss? What about Gambino? Are you a Halloween person?
I'm a Halloween person.
Whoa. Okay.
Okay, hold on.
I mean, that's straight up. Bernard
We
Herrmann.
found the
Is this
source.
better?
That is better.
No.
Yes.
Bernard Herrmann is scoring our panel.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Now y'all came in. I'm a Halloween person 12 months out of the year. So yeah. And that includes the candy and the decorations and all the rest of the madness. It's fun every month of the year. Those decorations shoot, stayed and if your friends tell you not to, you need better friends. And also, I wanted to throw it back to the beginning, because you said horror folks are some of the nicest people in the world, which is true. But you forgot to say that we're also sort of like the sexiest. And horror writers, horror readers, horror fans are also the best looking. So I just wanted to throw that out there, for the sake of speaking truth.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, just look at the screen, right? That's
right.
It just goes without saying. So what are all your all's favorite memories? Does everyone have a favorite memory of Halloween?
I do. So there was, in our neighborhood, there was like, there would be like the few houses that don't participate, and there was one where the lights were off, but there was this like scarecrow on this like bench out front of their door. And I remember saying to my younger brother, let's just knock, let's just go see, And then we went, and as we're knocking, that scarecrow stood up, and it was a person waiting for someone to do exactly what we did. And Ryan and I bolted. I mean, it was the scariest thing. But I remember turning, like kind of looking over my shoulder and being like, I want to do that. Whatever just happened to us, I want to do that.
Nice.
It was so brilliant.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant.
I had something like that as well on Halloween when I was, 6th grade, 7th grade. Where I grew up, there was an abandoned convent kind of up on a hill, and it had a cemetery off by it, and everybody knew the convent was haunted. So we snuck into the cemetery to play around in the headstones and stuff. And we're having a good time, and I was running by a headstone, and all of a sudden this huge white form stands up behind it. It's a guy who I knew. He was about 6.5 feet tall, a really, really white dude. He was like practically transparent. And I immediately knew it was him, but that just made it worse, because this was a dude who would if he ever caught you in a bathroom at school, he would torture you endlessly, where you'd have to go home. He was not a nice dude at all. He's not around anymore, but that was so frightening. I'll never forget that spike of terror of I'm alone. Yeah. I'm alone in the nighttime with this guy.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a really spooky little town in Massachusetts, and Paul can back me up on this. I think the towns in New England just vie for spookiest town, right? Like they're all in the fall, very creepy. But the town I was in was a very small town, but it was packed full of cemeteries, and some of them were just crazy. I mean, like they really would fire your imagination. Surrounded by high iron fences and a crypt, buried into the earth, and just crazy stuff that I had never seen before. But and just full of so many spooky stories and a really crazy old church. And I kept waiting for something strange to happen, but it never did. And it sounds like you guys at least got to have some scary moments.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna go to New England town, I mean, I grew up in Beverly, which is next to Salem. So when Halloween came, Beverly was angry that we weren't Salem. So I had to spend some years dodging Nair eggs, they're called. So you take an egg, put a little hole in it, empty out the yolk, and then fill it with Nair, the hair removal cream.
Wow.
So you did not want to get a Nair egg in the head because you just have a bald spot.
Wow.
So people are angry in Beverly.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know, right? Don't do that at home, kids. No, but
I've never heard of something like that.
When I was older, we would go to Salem. It's funny now. Salem is actually saying, "Don't come here." We're getting 100,000 people a day right now, and we are not built for 100,000 people a day. They're telling people not to come. There's no parking spots left. So it is a little strange. Salem is an interesting town if you've never been. I mean, there's cool, spooky stuff too, but it's also like this weird celebration of state-sanctioned death.
Right.
But no, in my 20s, one of my favorite memories is going with my siblings and Lisa, and we hit the bars, and I was dressed as a scarecrow, and I reenacted many a scarecrow scene just on random people's. I would sit on random porches and wait for people to walk by at the end of the night. I got a few people.
That's
I am
amazing.
6'4" after all. Yeah.
Paul, we just went. Allison and I just went to Salem for the first time in my life.
Oh, right. You were in Haverhill, right?
Yeah, and I was expecting I think I was expecting a village, like,
No.
and then like priests and shit. And then I was like, wait, this place. And then Chris Golden described it. He goes, it's kind of like Goth Key West. And I was like, that was what it was like.
That's a good description. No, the population is like 45,000, but triple it in a weekend in October. Yeah.
Wow.
It was fun, though.
Those Nair eggs, that sounds like it's out of the Anarchist Cookbook, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, bad.
Yeah.
Really, that's just I don't know. It says something about the mindset, right? Of the kids. I'd never heard of Nair eggs. That's pretty crazy.
But also, could you real fast? I'm sorry, but could you shave that way? I mean, like, could you throw those eggs at each other's faces? Maybe.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. Let's try that one day.
It'll stink. Yeah.
Okay, I see something in a feature Stoker Con. Nair egg. We're like Nick had said, they're going to take questions, and I think we're going to do that in about 15 minutes. So I'm going to skip the candy questions. I know you're all disappointed. We can always come back to it. But so one thing I'm curious about, was there a moment that led you to become a horror writer? And I'm wondering if any of you guys have had like a real life ghost experience. Was there something otherworldly that really made you want to explore this more in your writing? Anybody?
I wonder, like, when I come back to my hotel room at 2 a.m. and I'm trying to get in my door with my little key card, and I look like 15 doors down and there's somebody walking away. I never know if that person's real or not. That person could be a ghost. I have no idea. So I could be having ghost experiences every time I travel,
You could be. You absolutely could.
Yeah. And I always think I am too. So
I do have a ghost story.
Ooh.
But it's so long. I'm gonna try to make it small. I promise I'll make it really small. I was like 14. The rest of the house is asleep. I'm downstairs watching TV, one of the 5 channels that existed back then. And on the wall to my right, there's a painting that's framed and behind glass, and the glass reflects the entrance to the kitchen over my shoulder. Right? Okay. TV in front of me, glass, and I can see what's behind me from the glass. I'm watching TV and I sense whatever, like a figure in the reflection. And I look up and there's someone like peering around the entrance from the kitchen. And I was like, oh, you know, and then whatever it was went like this to me. It went, and it was the most like chilling feeling, because it wasn't my brother, it wasn't my older brother, my younger brother, it wasn't my dad or mom. And I like jumped up and probably foolishly ran to the kitchen to be like, who is this?
Yeah.
And was struck with that dead silence. Like, no one's running upstairs, no one's leaving the house, nobody's like, what was that? And the thing that's always haunted me about that the most was this wasn't peripheral, this wasn't corner of the eye, this wasn't a glimpse, this was an interaction. This was, I saw it, said like, it told me don't worry. That's a interaction. And
yeah.
So that's not like if you believe in such things, residual energy or whatever, that thing was aware of me.
Yeah.
And so go ahead.
Did you ever have another experience with this entity, or was it
No, I've never been alone since.
That sounds like Art the Clown without his makeup, man.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, even right now, I just got a little nervous. You probably heard in my voice, I got like a little nervous, like telling that story. It's like, yeah, that was a big one. I don't know if that got me into horror, but that happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I always wanted something. And we did a panel with Jennifer a few days ago, Jennifer McMahon, and she was saying how when she was a kid, she wanted to have a ghost friend. I mean, like she, had a ghost friend. I think it was sort of a created ghost friend. And I certainly know that. I grew up in a super spooky Victorian house, super creepy. I mean, I can't believe somebody bought it after my family left. That's how creepy it was. Right? And I wanted to have a ghost friend too. I mean, I think maybe that's something little girls do. I don't know. But but as much as I wanted to have that encounter, and certainly was surrounded by a lot of crazy things. As I'd mentioned, it was a reverend's house, so it was a manse. And apparently they didn't think a lot of this reverend because they never kept it up. So it was like, just falling down, decrepit house, and very, very spooky. And his wife had died in it, and we knew his wife had died in it. And, I just wanted something to materialize out of it, but never did. What about you, Gambino? Did you have was there any one story that maybe?
I had a bunch, but I feel like I have to come up with the most cinematic one. Because I told some of I dated a woman who saw ghosts and all that stuff, which I've written about for Tor Nightfire. But I remember in 2001, I was staying with my buddy Will in a cheap old motel down in Miami. And we were going out to have dinner. And we walked out, and there's this old man wearing like khakis and a blue shirt making his way to the elevator. And we locked the door because it was, cheap hotels, you have to like yank the door and make sure that it's closed. We hear the elevator, and he walks in, and we're like, hold it. And we start sprinting, and he doesn't hold it. And so we make it just in time. I throw my leg. He gets caught. The elevator opens. And the old man wasn't there. And it was the first time in my life where I had seen it, and I knew that Willie had seen the dude. And he was like, it was one of those moments where you go, I'm not alone. He saw it. We haven't taken anything. And that just happened. It was real.
Did you go in the elevator, or did you jump back at that point?
We were already in the elevator. So we just looked at each other, and we talked about it sort of like in a roundabout way. I think Will's a very religious dude. Much love to my buddy Will. But I think he didn't want to address it. He was a little uncomfortable with the old man who wasn't there.
It's possible that you two disappeared also.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. And then my career took over, so this is Andre.
Yeah.
You were in the portal elevator.
Maybe.
So let's expand on that question a little bit, because like I had said earlier, you guys are all just crazy talented. I mean, and you could write anything. So what made you decide on writing horror? Or maybe we don't write horror. Maybe we write other things with horror elements. I don't know. Anybody want to explore this?
I feel like I write horror, and I think these guys do too. I've read their stuff. And you too, Alma. But What was Stephen King used to get asked that all the time, and he'd always just say some of us are just hardwired for horror, and that's really the best answer I can ever think of.
Mhm.
I do write science fiction and fantasy and literary stuff, but I get bored and somebody gets eviscerated, a head goes rolling across the prom floor, and it turns into horror. Horror is what's exciting to me. It's where my heart goes when I don't even tell it where to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's impossible to answer like why horror. But I feel like we've probably all been asked it enough. Sorry, moth of horror. We've been asked it so often. It's like I just want to now answer. How come you don't? Like, how come you're not into horror? Like, I have a harder time understanding because it's just I've been, as long as I can remember, I was watching Creature Double Feature when I was like a wee lad, and terrified by it, obviously, and it's just just where my interests go. It's just where most of my story ideas, like I want to explore it through the lens of horror. One of my current favorite writers, Mariana Enriquez, talks about I'm going to butcher her quote, but she talks about communicating through horror or viewing the world through the lens of horror or something like that. She would have said it much better. Sorry, Mariana. I do want to add, like, I don't have a ghost story though, but really briefly, ghost story adjacent. The closest that I've come is messing around with a Ouija board in my grandparents' house. They lived in an old like 3-decker. And, it was me, my siblings, and a cousin or two, and asking questions like, "Oh, who are you gonna marry?" I think my mind was like Jennifer King. Didn't happen. Sorry, Jennifer. Or Lisa's like, "Damn," or "Yay." But yeah, after messing around with it for a while, we said, "Are you a good spirit, or are you a kind spirit?" And it spelt out really slowly at times. And we, and all the kids freaked out.
Oh, that's good.
Had to be consoled. Yeah. And so I used to be super scared of Ouija boards all the time until I saw them mass produced. It helped mass produce them on the assembly lines at Parker Brothers, which sort of took that weird sting out of it. But I will say, I've had so many nightmares in my grandparents' house, including last night. Like, it's the first one I've had in years, because their front entrance we never went in the front entrance. We always went on the side. So the front was always like this pristine, hardly used, but like dusty and dark and kind of weird, like big main entrance up into the second and third floor. And a lot of my nightmares ended up in those areas. So I don't know, maybe it's attached.
Interesting. That's interesting. I think part of the reason I'm not having as much fun writing horror is because I moved away from New England, down where I lived in DC. I mean, there are old places, but there's not a lot of old places. Most of the houses when I moved down here 30 years ago hadn't been built. They were 20 years old or younger. And in New England, you just can't, you can, swing a cat and you'll hit a haunted house or a graveyard or spooky trees or something like that. It's just, vibrates with it.
I think
every place is old if you go back far enough.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I feel like I do kind of have an answer to why horror for me, which is like there's something that I cherish about it, that there's an Arrested Development about it. I'm able to believe the horror story as I read it, as I watch the movie, even as I write it. For the duration of the story, I am able to actually believe it and to be scared of it. And I think that if you actually, to get like root scared of it, means that for a moment you believe in something beyond what we take for reality or take scientifically to know beyond the known universe, right? And so to me, it's so thrilling, the idea of more. And so in a strange way, it's not that I feel like I'm refusing adulthood. It feels like I'm bringing a part of childhood into adulthood. And that's believing in all these stories for the duration, and often for the really good ones, even when the story ends. And so that, to me, it feels the scare itself or the underlying dread always feels like a suggestion of more. And then there's something strangely darkly optimistic about that I'm really turned on by.
Yeah, I'm the same, Josh. I get really scared when I'm writing and when I'm reading stuff, and it's for that same reason, because I invest in it so fully, intellectually and emotionally, that it's palpably real to me, and it does invade my nightmares. And I'll walk around a corner somewhere and I expect to see the world that I'm reading about or writing or something. And I don't know any other way to do it. Actually, if I'm ever writing a horror novel that's not scary to me, then I don't know why I'm writing a horror novel. I'll probably just quit.
What about you, Gabino? I told you I'd call on you if you didn't.
It's a lot of things, and because I don't want to echo anybody else, I'll go with Don't Judge My Parents. I think I was probably 10 or 11 where I saw The Exorcist the first time, and the things that I felt, I was so alive. I was electric. I was in touch with, like, I could hear the neighbor. I was paying attention to every sound. And I think horror puts us in that frame of mind where we're like, you know, hyper aware. We're paying attention to every sound, to our own breathing. And also the fact that most of us grew up with, I did not have YA literature. It wasn't as big a thing as it is now. So my YA literature was Stephen King, Bentley Little, and Richard Lehman. So I cannot not do it. So if I'm writing, it's going to turn into horror. It might start as a sci-fi story or a crime story or something else. And then eventually horror creeps in because that's what lives in my heart. And it ends up being a horror story every single time.
That's I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I agree with the Gabino. I've heard like people who do breaking and entering into houses say that their aesthetic sense is never so sensitive as when they're creeping through somebody's living room. You know, when you're scared, then you are aware in that way you're talking about. That's wonderful. You feel so alive. And moments later, you might be dead, but you feel really alive for a moment, you know?
That's true. I kind of miss it. You know, when I was living in it more. I became a scientist sort of later in life, and you know, and that's when you become an adult and you start assuming these roles. They're hard to throw off and to bring you back to that emotional, you know, heart of a story or something. And when you were talking, Josh, I have to say, in everything of yours that I've read, it's there on the page every single time. I feel your belief, you know, in the story, and it's just wonderful. You know, that's part of why I say you're an artist. You know, you bring artistry to all your stories. Every single one of you is so special.
Thank you.
We're almost out of time. I think they're going to jump in and start asking us questions. Yeah. But before we do that, how about if we just do the shout out round real quick, just so it doesn't get overlooked. Is there a horror writer or a recent release that you'd like to give a shout out to? And Paul, I have to say, after you brought up Mariana, what's her last name again?
Enriquez.
I picked up both of her short story collections. I mean, I've been meaning to read them for a while, but they're delicious.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, who wants to do a shout out first? Did I skip you off?
I'll do it. There's a newer author named Ross Jeffrey, who I did a really interesting thing with recently. We didn't write a book together, but we wrote a book at the same time. And we would send each other every 10,000 words. And I would advise this to anybody. This was amazing because not only were you getting a story and seeing a story in real time and in chunks, but you had like, even an audience of one, you had someone that you were kind of writing for every 10,000 words. And that was exciting. And someone who, as we all know, that sort of out to sea feeling that you can kind of feel halfway through a book where you're like, do I have a grip on this thing or not? You know, that moment, it was nice to have someone to ask if you did or not. And so Ross is great. And his book, The Devil's Pocketbook, is great. And the one he wrote while we were working together, I Died Too, But They Haven't Buried Me Yet, is great. And he's a great personality as well. So Ross Jeffrey.
Wow, that sounds great. And I have to say, you come up with so many freaking interesting ideas, like for so many things. You know, your book launches. They're not really readings, right? They're like performances. All this stuff. It's just amazing. You should have like an Idea of the Month club that we can subscribe to.
Oh, I love that. The Idea of the Month club is a great idea. That's the first one.
That's the first one, and I could use it. I'm doing just real briefly, I don't really write short stories, and somehow I have agreed to do a couple stories here or there for anthologies. So I told Ellen Datlow I'd do a story for her. This short story has dragged on for months. I just cannot finish it. And if I had something like that, where I had somebody that I'd been working with as I was working through, it probably would have been a lot less painful. So yeah, I'm gonna have to try that. Okay, sorry to digress. Who wants to go next? Who's got a shout out for us?
I got names.
Sorry.
Go for it, good sir.
Well, I guess I would just finish the Mariana Enriquez one. She has a novel coming in February called Our Share of Night, which is one of my favorite books I've ever read, ever. You know, top 5.
Wow.
Big 700 sprawling page epic. Roberto Bolaño meets cosmic horror, sort of. New release, Rachel Harrison's, Such Sharp Teeth is amazing. I don't know what I was going into the book expecting, but like every expectation that I had and she purposely manipulated any expectation I had for a werewolf novel, like twisted it and it transformed and became this beautiful book. Another book to look out for next year. I just read Laura Sims, How Can I Help You? It's a riff on Shirley Jackson's. It's a riff on Misery and Shirley Jackson's. We will always live in the castle, or we have always lived in the castle. Sorry. Yeah.
Ooh, that sounds great.
And Paul said Mariana's in his top 5. That's in his top 5 books because there's 4 of us here. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Any other shout outs? I'll add
yeah.
Andy Davidson to the list. His book, The Hollow Kind, just came out recently. Super good, sort of Southern Gothic with a lot of really interesting Southern history in it. And I'll second Rachel Harrison. I really just love her voice. She's a unique talent, I think, for these days, especially being a woman writer. She really brings an interesting perspective, I think, in all her work.
Mm-hmm. I'll say Mayfly by C.J. Lead. It comes out next summer, I believe, or I guess is that this summer now? I don't know this and next. That always confuses me. But it's that, like, how some movies you watch them like this because you don't want the stuff to imprint on your brain. That's how reading this book is. It's got that kind of brutality to it. And it's really, really fun. Yeah.
I just came back from the Merrimack Valley Halloween Book Festival where Josh and I had a chance to finally hang out for a little bit, which only happens like once a year. But I spent the day surrounded by incredible storytellers. I sat next to V. Castro all day. She's part of the Wave of the Future, and she's here now. Cynthia Pelayo was there. Eric LaRocco was there. And Jonathan Jantz, who I think we don't mention enough because he's such a great storyteller. So anything by all those.
Yeah, absolutely. Great roll call. And I wanted to shout out, not that she needs it from me, Catriona Ward. I just absolutely adore everything she's written, and her new book, which was actually her first book, Little Eve, just came out recently. So check that out. I think we're nudging up against the question and answer period. Nick, do you want to come back and join us? There he is.
That was fast. Wow.
Absolutely. I'm always watching.
The man from the elevator.
I'm back. All right. Yes, we have some questions. If there are anyone who want to put in some last minute questions before time runs out, please go ahead and do so now. One of our top most voted questions among our pile of questions is, what's a book or movie that feels like Halloween or encapsulate the season for you? So, group question.
Ooh.
Like we have to
Book
agree
or
on it?
movie?
We have to agree? No, we don't have to agree on one, do we?
No.
Oh, I meant like a question, like each one of you can do yours. It's not like specifically one you author or you author.
All right. I thought it was like from Trivial Pursuit where we had to all agree on the
No, that'd be oh gosh, what's that? Family Feud. Yeah, it'd be like Family Feud.
Yeah.
Top answer.
Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah. Well, I'll go first. For me, it's I'm so old. One of my contemporaries, Nathaniel Hawthorne. No, he actually wrote a lot of great horror stories, and I, not for a lot of women, of course, The Scarlet Letter was a horror story, but he wrote a lot of great short stories. And there's one called Feathertop that I am still trying to come up with like a modern version of that story today. So go read your old Nathaniel Hawthorne.
I have him right here. I'm gonna read that later.
Nice.
One from Vincent Price for me. It's just, I mean, it's like tailor-made or something. And I watch House of Wax it's not even like intentional. I just like, yeah, I'm gonna watch that again. And there's just, I don't know why that particular movie, but that man was just absolutely made for this season. And he's my guy in October.
I used to watch Night of the Living Dead every Halloween. I don't know if that's really like a Halloween vibe though. And also maybe sort of on the sad Halloween side of things, Stuart Onan's The Night Country, which does take place over a couple of Halloween nights. It's beautifully written, purposely, calls back Ray Bradbury, and it's frightening and utterly devastating novel.
Wow.
For movies, I always go here for.
Oh yeah,
Nice.
As good as it gets for Halloween. For books, I wonder if Christopher Golden's All Hallows is going to be that book, because I just got it and I want to read it so badly. And I think
I just got it too.
Yeah, it feels like perfect for this season.
What about you, Gabino? Do you have something?
I think sometimes I think about Halloween / spooky season more as a overall vibe than the pumpkins and the rest of the stuff. And I think a lot of folks jump on this 31 days and watch a lot of horror and then don't watch horror the rest of the year. And I highly recommend they check out Lake Mungo, because that movie is a vibe, it's a mood, it's a season unto itself. So yeah, Lake Mungo.
That's a great one, man. That one messed me up. I like Hagazusa is another one that has a similar, just my favorite horror stories are the ones that you don't know exactly why you're so unsettled. And I think that Ian Reid kind of writes that way, where like, it's just two people in a car driving. Why am I so unsettled right now? And those are my favorites. And I feel like Lake Mungo did that to me the whole time. Like, I don't know exactly why I'm so freaked out, man, but I am.
Never heard of Lake Mungo.
Yeah. You know that movie Creep and Creep 2 works like that too. Like Josh is saying, like you get more and more weirded out as it goes. And I love that. So much fun.
It's not an easy thing to like. It's just not an easy thing to intentionally set out to do. It's almost like a sleight of hand, or it's like just being like supple with it and whatever. I just love it.
All right, so this one is going to actually between mostly, well, I guess the rest of you can also judge on this, but between Josh Malerman and Stephen Graham Jones, if Daphne had a 1-versus-1, the deer spirit from the Only Good Indians, who would win?
I think Daphne would, because when Elkhead Woman comes at you without you having done something to her, then she can't beat you,
Okay, I was gonna say that yours wins because Daphne, she was just really tall. She didn't play, so like she doesn't stand a chance. I feel like, but she is really freaking tall. I want to see this game, man.
I know, me too.
This crossover book must happen then. It's like the Freddy versus, oh gosh,
Jason.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Josh and I both write fast, so we could do it really quickly together.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean,
this question is for Stephen Graham Jones. Who do you think should direct an adaptation for My Heart is a Chainsaw?
What's her name? Lee Janiak. I think she's amazing. She did the Fear Street 1994 and the aesthetic. She's the closest as far as like being scared in a hallway that I've seen to Wes Craven, actually.
Awesome.
So I know some of you had mentioned this, but definitively, what or which authors was your introduction to reading horror? If you can remember as far back as what first got you into like, let's continue with this.
I actually have right here the very first horror novel I ever read, The Face of Fear, but this is a pseudonym. This is Dean Koontz.
Oh, wow.
And it's the very first one I read. I don't remember how old I was, but I think it almost entirely takes place inside of an office building. And that setting of it alone changed things for me. You know, I was like, you can write a whole book. I can write a book in an office building. Like it doesn't have to be like Moby Dick. We don't have to be. It doesn't have to be an app. It can be like 4 floors. Yeah, this one. It's not that it's my favorite or something. It was just the first, and it opened a door in that way for sure.
Exactly.
Is that a slasher, Josh? Josh froze.
He's frozen.
Dean Koontz is coming after him now for
He cut a line. He cut a line.
His writer's name. Yeah.
He sent a smart dog after Josh, man.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
No matter, just don't
Josh.
mention his name. Don't mention his name. Man, I have to. I'm sorry. I think for me it was probably Edgar Allan Poe. Read a lot of Poe when I was like 7 or 8 years old. I was not supervised in the library, obviously. And Nathaniel Hawthorne, you can read those books and they'll be proud of you, right? And they don't realize that you're really reading, these scary stories.
Yeah, I would say briefly. I wasn't a big reader as a kid. I didn't really fall in love with reading until like my early 20s. And that was like Stephen King that started me off on that route. But I did, I think, for 3 years in a row in high school, write an English paper on Edgar Allan Poe. So at least academically, I was reading Poe.
Cool. Here comes Josh. All right, Josh is back. All right.
He survived.
I'm sure that's Josh, or it's not Dean Koontz wearing Josh's face.
Yeah, it could be.
Everyone in the chat was like, "Oh my God, Dean Koontz is here."
I read a whole lot of like science thrillers, which had scary stuff. But the first novel I remember reading that was marketed as horror was Stephen King's Tommyknockers, which I still like. I still like that book. Yeah.
All right, this one's going towards the crafting of writing. How much outlining do y'all do before you tackle a project?
Hey, hold on, Gabino.
None.
Wait, Gabino didn't get the answer. I want to hear Gabino.
Oh, sorry, Gabino. Yeah, do it. Sorry.
No, that was the whole answer. I had a quick answer for this one. None.
You don't outline? Oh my gosh.
No, not at all. I tried it once, and 2 hours later, I ran out and punched my neighbor, and that was it.
No, the same with me. I don't even come close to outlining. It's too scary for me.
I made you do it once.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, but outlining and research are the two worst things about novel writing. I skip those altogether. Oh no, it's so terrible, man.
I'm with you on research. Sorry, but I haven't written outlines for everything. But I would say for most of my novels, I've written an outline. But I don't know how you guys get away with it. Well, I know how you two. I'm pointing at Josh and Steven because they write so fast. But like, I've been in situations where like my publisher is like, hey, to offer a new deal, we want to see like 50 pages in a summary. So like I've been forced professionally to write summaries sometimes against my will. But I have found them helpful because I'm least comfortable in plot. I just like having sort of that skeleton there, but not every book. Like I didn't write an outline for Head Full of Ghosts, and the novel that I'm working on now called Horror Movie, a Novel, I'm not writing an outline for.
Wow. I use outlines for everything, and I do a lot of research. So I am like the complete opposite of you, Stephen, I guess. That horrible short story that's driving me crazy. I finally today sat down and broke that down plot point by plot point to help me understand what am I missing here? What piece of connective tissue is not there, to make the whole thing hang together. So in a way, I feel kind of bad. I feel like maybe I should try doing something completely by the seat of my pants and see, am I not a real writer? Am I just too much of an analyst? Maybe.
I think everybody has different. I mean, whatever gets the thing written is it's the good thing to do. Some people take 5 years to write a thing. Some people take a weekend, and it doesn't matter. The product is what matters. It doesn't matter the process. I don't think.
That's true. That's very true.
I outlined one time because I just like jumped back in. I outlined one time because Ghoul in the Cape was 300,000 words, and if I couldn't risk getting to like 100,000 and being like, oh, what am I doing? Like, where am I going? And so I understood like you're not going to be able to marathon this book, so you need to know where the hell you're going. So that was the one time I did it. And also, I'm just weird enough to think if I do outline it all, then that's just a like cool, weirdly written book. It's like it's just what it's all like first this happened, then this happened.
Yeah.
Chapter 3 would be this, chapter 4 would be like there, done. We wrote that one. It's only 6 pages long, but it's done. Yeah. So I can't that'll screw me up. I'm too low fi for an outline.
Yeah. But like when I start writing a slasher, I don't know who the killer is generally. I have to figure it out by about the 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through mark, you know.
That's
and then
cool.
I'm like, oh, it must be this person, you know. They're not dead yet, man.
That's sweet, dude.
All right, this question is for Paul. Are you as punk rock as art? What music inspires your writing?
I mean, yeah, I don't know how well. I mean, Art actually, I guess, was in band, so I guess he's more punk rock. But no, music's a big inspiration. Like so many of my books and stories are named after songs. Like A Head Full of Ghosts was actually originally called My Head is Full of Ghosts, which is a Bad Religion song I happened to be listening to when I started writing that book. Although, you know, so music will inspire when I'm writing, but like I can't listen to punk while I'm writing. If I'm writing, it has to be music with no lyrics. Otherwise, I just get distracted. I almost came dressed as Art tonight with Art's leather jacket, but I figured that would have been obnoxious.
Especially if it was feeding on you, man. That'd be really weird.
Right? Yeah. Well, I think, well, we talked earlier about how much we don't or do Halloween. You know, Lisa has Mercy's jacket, green jacket, or I can loan her mine too. So we can go as Art and Mercy. Which will be weird.
It's awesome.
All right. I am interested in this one. What is the best horror novel of all time? Period. One answer each.
Yeah, wait.
I'm not into
Putting everyone on
best.
the
I don't speak in best and favorites and stuff. I don't speak that language.
Yeah, because it's so subjective. You know, what appeals to one person may not appeal in quite the same way to another person. I can definitely say one of my favorite is The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. And the reason I like it is I think it's very hard to write a convincing ghost story. And that one really kind of made me sit back. And then years later, I found out, very interesting, she didn't write it as a ghost story originally. It was just the straight historical novel. And she just really felt like something was missing. And she pulled that whole ghost thread through afterwards. And I just found that fascinating.
That's a great novel. We're about to find out if Dean Koontz has in fact replaced Josh.
Yeah.
By Josh giving it. It's Dean Koontz's.
It's The Watcher.
This one is one of my favorites. Perfume.
Oh, that's a great one.
That's like a top level. Like, man, this is, you know, like Gabino, when you said earlier, The Exorcist, and you felt so alive and electrified. Right. You know, this one did that to me. Like, and Alice and I read it together, and it was just so good. Perfume's a great one.
Yeah.
One of Kurt Cobain's favorite books. Anyway, sorry.
Oh, really?
Random trivia, yeah.
Huh.
And Dean Koontz's too.
Well, I think the right answer is the best horror novel I've written is about to be released, and it's by Garth Marenghi. Marenghi has a novel coming out like in November,
so
I believe.
Yeah, I'm so excited for that. You know, I think I'm always saying this everywhere. I think Gemma Files' experimental film is a horror novel that does every single thing right. You know, I'm always so impressed. I'm always aspiring to try to do as much right as I can. I usually get about 30% right, but I think in that book she gets like 98% right. You know?
Sweet.
Did everyone give their answer?
I think this is one of those questions where it's like, what day of the week is it? Like today, I could say Brian Evanson's Last Days, and then tomorrow I would say A Head Full of Ghosts, and the day after Rachel Eve Moulton's Tinfoil Butterfly, and you know, by Sunday I forgot Last Days, so I'll repeat that one again, and the whole thing starts all over again. So it's the best horror novel is the one that lives in your heart, and you keep recommending people. Yeah, you know, The Hunger, maybe one of the best horror novels of all time. The Only Good Indians. I'm still talking about it. And people are like, "Have you read anything else since?" Well, yeah, but I still want to talk about that one. So, all of those.
since we are getting near close to time, I want to make sure everyone has enough time to talk about maybe some, I know a couple of you already hinted at it, maybe discuss the title, but upcoming projects you're currently working on or soon to be published that you want to plug.
Who wants to
Who's
go
jumping
first?
in?
We're all such good self-promoters, aren't we?
Yeah.
Alma, let's
Like
take you
a weird-
first.
It felt like a weird question to jump in first on. You know?
Sure.
Oh, I've got something.
All right, Koontz.
Yeah. Well, I did just have a
No.
novella come out. It's only available on Kindle, so I sort of feel bad bringing this up, but Rob did mention it. It's called The Last Werewolf, and it is historical horror, and it has to do with the whole question of complicity, when there's atrocities going on. And genocide researchers love that question. So it looks at the resistance. I'm really doing a horrible job at selling this story. Just go read it. It's only $1.99.
But it's actually, I thought it was the werewolf, not the last werewolf, right?
The werewolf. Sorry, did I say
Yeah.
the last werewolf?
Wow.
Something. There was a last werewolf novel. I came out.
Yeah, Glenn.
My
Glenn
first
Duncan.
novel
That's
came
like Glenn Duncan is taking over Alma. D.
I
Koontz,
know,
what is
I
going
know.
on?
Yeah, and the werewolf, WEHR wolf, the
Werewolf.
war wolf, basically is the title of it. And I did sign. I think Rob also brought this up. We did sign for the next horror novel. It's not going to come out until 2024, and it's going to be a contemporary. Not
Oh,
a
sweet.
Ooh.
Awesome. Congrats.
Thank you. Let's see if I can do it, huh?
Yeah. Now there's that, right?
Yeah. Is it TikTok? Is it all TikTok?
Ooh, there's a thought.
Yeah.
Keep them coming. I need all the ideas I can get.
Oh gosh.
Who's next? Come on, dude.
My book Spin a Black Yarn. I just finished like the afterword for it and all that. That is coming out a year from now. And then we also submitted a book called Incidents Around the House that I'm hoping comes like soon after that. And I would love to do other ones. Oh my God, there's just so many. The movie side, I'm not supposed to be talking about this, but I don't care because I love everyone here and we're all horror fans. But the movie side, there's really exciting stuff with Daphne, with the writer from *Malignant*, and Megan is attached, Kayla Cooper, who's absolutely brilliant.
Oh, wow.
And I've never seen, it's the most brilliant, like I hate this word, it's the most brilliant like pitch I've ever seen. As we went to like studios with her, it was so fun, intelligent. It was like a horror fan explaining why they wanted to write this script to these studios, and it's happened. So there's possibly, because it's always possibly, but excitingly, the film side of Daphne looks good right now, and Spin a Black Yarn is coming out next year.
Nice. Is that the name of your production company too?
Yeah.
Right?
So
yeah.
It's been a traveling title. It was a title of a collection of novellas. Those all went their separate way. Then it was short stories. Then it was this. Then we used it as a company name, and then now it's finally like the book is coming out.
Cool.
So
Cool.
All right.
I have this one's coming out here in February.
Yay!
Yay.
And I just finished writing the third one, and I guess I've
Awesome.
got two more things coming out as well, but I can't talk about them yet.
That is fair.
Well, in February, the adaptation of my novel, The Cabin at the End of the World, will be a film called Knock at the
Yes.
Cabin. Not inspired by, but an adaptation of my book. And next summer, I have a short story collection coming out called The Beast You Are, which will feature an original novella that's going to be like the big part of the book. An original anthropomorphic animal novella with a giant monster, a slasher cat, and I wrote it in free verse. The freest of all possible verse. Not all the
sounds
stories were
awesome.
free verse, just that. Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's awesome.
All right. What about you, Gabino?
You're on mute.
Oh, I think his microphone may have disconnected then if it's showing his mute.
Yeah,
Oh
maybe.
no.
Maybe he can like mime it. Can he charade it or something?
Right.
Did
So
he
and
write-
then we got it like
Gabino, did you write a bad review?
It's a monster.
Did you write a bad review
It's
for Dean
scary.
Koontz?
Yeah,
I think-
really.
Yes, I
It's
think Dean
scary,
Koontz
it's coming.
is spooking the chat now.
It's so funny. Oh my God.
Oh,
Well,
I
all
wanna
of those
know.
things sound wonderful.
They do. Well, we unfortunately have reached, unless, he's going to type it in. Okay, let's.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
He's typing.
Save yourself is what he's typing.
At times.
That's,
By the way,
Shivering with
Incidents Around the
anticipation.
House is a great title too.
Read the Devil
Oh,
Takes
thanks.
You Home. There we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do read it if you haven't read it yet. It's fabulous. It's
great.
just fabulous.
Yes, and like I said, we still have some signed copies of The Devil Takes You Home here. So if you want to get those before they're gone, definitely do that. If you order online, just put in your comment section, give me that signed copy. And it'd be a little bit, tell us what signed copy you're talking about. Same thing with Alma Katsu's books. Otherwise, we will have signed book plates for the other books for the other authors here. And of course, I cannot leave off without Horror Guru Rob saying his goodbyes. Hold on.
Hey, Rob, I should tell you before you. Can you hear me, Rob?
I can hear you now.
You're in the back of this one, I think, man, if I remember correctly.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Steven. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
That's just that's an honor, man. So just real quick, guys, it has been such a pleasure to have all of you here. Generally just every time I think about like my own dreams and stuff, you guys are my inspiration. Your voices are so true. Your stories show the full just potential of everything horror can be, beyond a slasher, but just emotionally resonant and deeply moving, spiritual. I just hope all of you in the audience will just read every one of these amazing people's books. And I'm hoping we can get all of you guys in our store again. That's one of my dreams, is just to be able to just show you off in person and show my love for how much I just genuinely admire you guys. It's not to totally fanboy, but I'm kind of fanboying to have all of you guys here at one time. It's just so awesome. But thank you so much, all of you, for being here. Thank you so much to the audience. We really appreciate the big crowd that came and showed up for this to make it a really special event. So we're going to head on out, and you guys have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rob. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Nick. Thanks, everybody.
Later.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Halloween.